The fight to free WNBA star Brittney Griner is escalating inside of a Russian courtroom. Prosecutors calling on a state narcotics expert who analyzed the cannabis found in Griner's luggage at an airport in Moscow. Griner's lawyers calling the report flawed. Last month, Griner pleaded guilty to her charges, stressing that she did not intend to break the law and that she was not aware of the illegal substance when she packed it in her suitcase. She said she was in a hurry. If convicted, the two-time Olympic gold medalist could face 10 years in prison. But that could all change if the Kremlin agrees to a prisoner swap involving Griner, also veteran Paul Whelan, and a man by the name of Viktor Bout. He's a convicted international arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. Bout is currently serving a 25-year prison sentence in the U.S. after he was convicted in 2011 of conspiracy to kill Americans and aiding a terrorist organization. His attorney, Steve Zissou, says it is time to make a deal. The question is, will it happen and how close are we? Steve Zissou joining us live tonight. Sir, appreciate your time as always. Glad to have you back on the program. Status of the negotiations right now. What can you share about the progress of talks?
Well, it's good to be back. Frankly, I think we're close. As you know, it looks like the trial is moving along today. Next day is August 4th. It's my understanding that the parties will make their sentence recommendations, and then the judge may or may not impose sentence. Hopefully, there is a sentence announced that date. Hopefully, neither side will appeal that sentence. We could have a final judgment, which is what the Russians have been asking for. And then I think we'll be able to reach an agreement in a relatively short time, so long as the chatter sort of slows down. I think it hasn't been helpful. Indeed, I don't think it was helpful for the American Secretary of State to announce that there was an offer made. I think that might have delayed things, but we'll see.
Do you believe that this is your client's best chance, this swap right now, that the window is closing?
Well, I know that the window is closing. The Russian government has not made it a secret that they are eager to have him back. He is on everybody's lips. If you listen to what's going on in Russia, when the questions are answered, the name Viktor Bout is first mentioned. So I don't know if it's his last chance. It's certainly a good chance. And I have no reason to think that he's going to be left home when this exchange happens.
Russia has been trying to get Bout back for decades. Why is he such a priority for the Russian government?
Well, I mean, it's really not complicated. When Viktor Bout was targeted back in 2005 and 2006 by the United States government, he was retired out of the business, so to speak, out of the air transport business, what you folks call arms dealing. There's a bit more to it than that. And that targeting of a Russian citizen was seen very correctly as an attack on Russian sovereignty. Viktor Bout here, he's known as under various monikers, but in Russia, he's a respected citizen. And so Russia has long taken the position that targeting one of their citizens, who again wasn't committing a crime against the United States, had never committed a crime that was charged in a U.S. courtroom. He wasn't under indictment anywhere at the same time, and the U.S. government simply decided to target him.
Do you deny, though, that he was caught in an undercover sting, agreeing to sell surface-to-air missiles to be used to kill U.S. troops? In addition to that, did he not consult and supply weapons to rebel groups, militias in Africa, supply arms to Taliban insurgents in Afghanistan? I mean, the list is long of the crimes he's accused of.
Actually, those crimes were never charged. He was never charged with those crimes. The crime that he was charged with and the crime for which he was brought to the United States was a talk crime, meaning there was a discussion that agents created, that they encouraged him to participate in. It's a kind of a common script that they follow. But no arms were exchanged, no money was exchanged, nothing like that happened. And for that, in the U.S., it's hard for most people in the world to believe, you get sentenced to the same penalty as if there was an actual completed crime. And that's a mandatory minimum sentence of 25 years. And most folks can't even process that. And you don't get that for murder, as they say. Yet for a talk crime where no weapons were ever transferred, he received a mandatory sentence of 25 years. And frankly, the judge, as you know, has said several times that had she had the legal authority to do so, she would have given him less. Frankly, if there was no mandatory minimum, we wouldn't even be talking about Viktor Bout now.
Well, let's say he was in talks. It was a talk crime. Is he still in talks? What is his level of communication with the international arms community now?
Well, I can only go back to what the judge found at the time that he was sentenced. What she found was he had been involved in that kind of business for more than 10 years, which means as of today, it's 25 years since he was in that, I call it transport business. The judge said that it was at most he was involved in it 10 years prior to his targeting by the U.S. It's 25 years ago, has no ties to anyone. And frankly, the whole concept what you're really trying to do is punish him for offenses that could not be charged here, that the U.S. didn't like, that conduct that the U.S. didn't like from a decade before. And again, that doesn't seem right to me.
Well, I think to be fair, what I'm trying to get at is the truth and the facts of the matter. And even all these years later, the risk that he may pose. If Russia wants him back, there's a reason they want him back. You and I talked about this the last time we spoke. You call yourself a patriotic American. How do you reconcile your professional obligation to your client and also the precedent that any trade of this magnitude will have for American safety here and abroad?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because the reality is, I think I've explained this before, but the targeting of Viktor Bout is the thing that led to the current situation that we are in. The reality is that the targeting of Viktor Bout has made American citizens less safe. Because instead of showing, as I have explained before, a due deference, respect to each other's citizens, now if you went to Russia and you violate their laws, you are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Prior to the targeting of Viktor Bout, if you rolled into Moscow with a vape, I don't think they had him back then, but prior to targeting Viktor Bout, they would have called the embassy and said, get this kid out of here. But that doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because the United States government started it by targeting Viktor Bout. Again, you call him an arms dealer and merchant of death, but in Russia, he's a respected citizen. You call Paul Whelan a hostage, but in Russia, he's a notorious spy, right? So, you really have to understand this and to figure things out. You got to look at it from both perspectives.
I call Whelan an American and Bout is a Russian at this point, and we're out of time. Steve Zissou, as always, appreciate you coming on. We'll follow this closely. It sounds like this may be imminent, in fact, in days.
I think we're getting close. We're keeping our fingers crossed and praying for everybody.
All right. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.